If I gave myself to you today, what would be left to give? My heart you're taking slowly, my mind you're clouding in. Inside a lust is burning, it grows every day. But lust is only temporary, the feeling could then slip away. By then, along with all that lust, my heart has followed through, and now it can be broken if you fail to follow too. So as much as I want to love you, as much as I care, I can only love you once I know you'll always be there. I'm Jenni Russell. Welcome to Her Health and Happiness right here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 leading health radio station, available all around the world online, but also on podcast, on whichever platform you use, whether you're using Android or you're using Apple. We are here as a podcast and we are here as a radio broadcast. How are you doing? That poem I wrote in 2009, is my mum's favourite poem. But what followed that poem was this one. What can a man get for a smile and a wink and a few choice words that cloud the way you think? You're connected, not committed, yet you give away all you have, your sexual identity, your confidence, and all you are for a night of passion and a memory that may not take you very far. He can shower you with compliments as if streets paved with gold and get into your knickers with a simple story told. Yet what you have is precious, like a rare diamond to be found, for it is the key to love and life where your true beauty abounds. So if you want commitment, remember sex is just an act. Commitment is an action with a plan that backs it up. Commitment starts with communicating the thoughts that's in your head, your dreams and aspirations, and not first in your bed. Because a man that gets into your bedroom before he gets into your head is very rarely the man who will build a life with you or become the man you wed. Yeah. Those poems are interchangeable. That one I wrote in 2017 and the first one I wrote in 2009. I believe the second one comes first and the first one comes second. But anyway, I hope like me, you're thinking, where is she going with this? I'll explain. But I hope like me, you too remember that you are blessed and highly favoured, a magnet for miracles, the solution to someone's problem, and the answer to somebody's prayer. Her Health and Happiness is a show dedicated to all aspects of feminine, intimate health and the whole person. And this week I want to talk about relationships. Relationships with ourselves, relationships with a significant other. And it's really kind of in light of, I did not watch the coronation. I'm sorry, I'm not watching the coronation. I'm not a follower of the king. I understand all that. I suppose even for me, from a biblical perspective, he said, if you come to the altar to make a sacrifice and you have an issue with your brother, leave the sacrifice on the altar and go and sort that out first before you come to me. Because how can you have a problem with someone that you can see that you can't sort, but you want to come to me, someone you can't see? Now, I know we say we're a Christian country, but we don't really follow any kind of Christian ethics. And I'm not getting into the whole he said, she said. But regardless, the child is your son. He's your son. You've ordained him as your son. You recognize him as your son. So all this stuff in the papers, you need to get them to stop. And if your son came in and out, I don't need the ins and outs, right? It wasn't a waste of time for him. If it's his son's birthday on the same day, whatever the semantics are, people can read into it, write into whatever. He's still your child. If you want to lead people, show them what leading is like, because love is a series of actions. It's not if Harry does right, I will give, or whatever. It's a series of actions. Regardless, all have fallen short, sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Could you imagine if we upset God and he said, that's it, as Jim Rohn said, that's it, trip cancelled. He's not doing it anymore. We wouldn't get anywhere. Forgiveness is a gift. It's a tool that really shows our inner strength. But if we're all going to be so egotistical that, oh, you've hurt me, you've done this. Harry's showing his ego, you're showing your ego. But you know what? You're in your 70s. You're the older person. Fix up, look sharp. That's all I'm going to say about the coronation. I ain't saying nothing more. Anyway, before if I get emails, I'll be like, come on, send me some emails. I am a person that likes to encourage other people. I'm a person that loves to try and get people to see the best in people. And I have it written on my wall still here, separate the person from the behaviour. Now, do not get me wrong. We have our own issues in our side, our own families. Every family has its issues. But it's to be able for me to remind myself that if I'm a child of God, my actions can't be the same as that of my brothers and sisters or the people around me. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a work in progress because I can be a very reactionary person. But what I have come to learn is reactionary responses actually create more problems than the problem itself. So if I'm able to turn and walk away from what's in front of me, give myself 20 minutes or 24 hours, my response is much, much better. And that comes in light of us going out cycling this weekend. We did a long ride from Enfield to Twickenham. It was a 45-mile ride, just a Sunday ride out. But there was one lady in our group who consistently holds the group up. So it was put into the group that it was going to be a hard ride, not for the faint-hearted. But sometimes you have to spell things out to people, and sometimes you have to just say to them, this is not for you. But it's not to them, it's just to say, there are, we're all at different levels, we're all at different places. The issue is our ride is a social ride, as well as a ride we're preparing for the London Marathon. And so because we're preparing the London to Brighton bike ride. So because we want to prepare for that, we've got to do some rides that are going to take us a bit further out and just try to get some endurance in our legs. So to actually just try to pedal out really strong. But if that is not spelled out, if that person is able to get to the destination with us eventually, get back to base eventually, then in their mind, they're able to ride with us. So I made a suggestion and said, look, this is not going to help you. It's actually going to make you get slower. Because when I was training for the New York Marathon back in the 90s, I ran with my friend Fitz. He's the one that got me into Ultra Fit in the first place and made me a record holder. And I give him thanks for that. But when I trained with him for the New York Marathon, he was like a speck in the dust when we was running. And then he'd come back and he'd go, when I get to the end of the ride, where am I going? And I was just like, oh my God. And we spoke the other day and he said, you're never going to get over that, are you? And I said, no. Because, back then, 97 I did the New York Marathon, 97, 98. I didn't recognise that, obviously, training with someone who is that much faster than you doesn't actually help you because they're not helping you to pick up your pace. Today at Running Club, there's one lady that was struggling at the back. So I waited for her and I spoke her through. I got her to lift her chest. I focused on her breathing, her posture, her gait. And then I went just a few steps in front of her and kept saying to her, catch me. Every time she got closer, I picked my pace up slightly faster. That helped her to get a bit of endurance in her legs and to keep going because I was right there all the time. That's the difference. Now, the frustration this lady has, which she rightly has the right to have, is that she said that as a group, we don't wait for her. What she wasn't recognising is the frustration that we have is as a group, we have to wait for her. So there's a difference in that language. You're frustrated because we're not waiting, and we're frustrated because we are waiting. So how do we meet in the middle? And this is what I'm saying. You might be thinking, well, how does that link into those poems? I'm getting there. I'm a long-winded person. I'm talking about relationships and how we see things. So when it comes back to the poems that I've shared, there are women out there who will be intimate and they believe that because... And that poem was written on the back of, and I've shared this before, a lady saying that if she has sex with a man, that means they are committed. And I said, no, you're not committed. You're connected. And that's the difference. I think for a lot of times, for a lot of relationships, because we have been conditioned and told, don't say from out of the gate, out the back, this is what I want. We will drift into things. The reason why many relationships fall apart is because we drift into things without actually sort of saying, this is my dream and aspiration. We meet people because we're physically attracted to them. Then we learn about them as we go along. But if we do not communicate our dreams and aspirations and what's in our head, and find out if those people are on the same page as us or anywhere near the pages that we're on, then what we find is we may find ourselves pregnant. Some guys will stay and do the right things. Other guys won't. My son's father did not. So then we find ourselves in a situation where we have this child. And again, having a child and being a single parent, I give God thanks for that. Because for some people, it destroys them. For other people, it's the making of them. For me, I always believe that was the making of me. It stopped me in my tracks. I had to think about what I was going to do. Whereas when I was young, I was living a carefree life. I had to begin to care. It wasn't so free anymore. But I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel anything other than grateful. Grateful that I had an opportunity to become something else or to become someone else. Grateful that I had an opportunity to be able to bring a life into the world and be able to love that life and to nurture that life and to guide that life and bring him up to be the young man that he is today. And I had a superb support network. That makes all the difference in China. All of the difference is in that support network. And that's what really helped me. So it's about those relationships. I was connected to my son's father, but we were not committed. And that's the difference. But my thing was, if I give myself to you today, I gave myself. So giving of myself doesn't always mean that I'm going to get back in return what I'm hoping for. And I'm going to tell you how I'm put this. This is one of those shows where I wrote a personal development program back in 2011 when we had the riots. And my son, we called it Just Like, L-I-K-E, in inverted commas, Just Like Me. And it was really the concept of words and how they interplay and how we read people and how people read us. And when I look at things like equal and not the same, when I look at responsibilities and accountability, when I look at, like I said, equal but not the same, I know that myself in a relationship, and this was not my thing, I don't smoke or anything like that. So I know that if I was to be in a relationship with another person who was an alcoholic, who smoked loads of weed, let's say weed, popped loads of pills, stayed out late, just partying all the time, and then I found myself pregnant, and then I decided that I was going to do the same thing he was going to do, I run the risk of severely damaging the child that I'm carrying. But he can continue to do the same thing without running the same risk. And that's the difference. We're not the same. We're equal, but we're not the same. We cannot continue to do the same irresponsible things as our partners in pregnancy because we're the ones who will damage the child. And that's what I think many of us don't recognize. So our accountability and our responsibility and their accountability and their responsibility is totally different. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying men do not have no responsibility. That is not what I'm saying. From a physiological standpoint, just literally based on biomechanics and biology, it's impossible for us to continue to behave in that way. So we may have to change our lifestyle habits, but we also need to change our mental emotional habits as well. Because children out of wedlock are not inside a planned union, which means someone's going to make the plans. And usually, if they're not made in a unit, they're made singular. Then you've only have to wait till further down the road to see how those plans are going to play out. But you need to have some kind of plans. They can change the relationship you then have with yourself. They can change the relationships you have with the child you're bringing into the world. And they can change the relationships you will have either with the child's father or with new relationships moving forwards. But all of that directly can change the relationship you have with your body or your body has with you. posturally, structurally, hormonally, nutritionally, in terms of confidence, in terms of continence, and in terms of sexual feeling. All of those things that will, at some point, emotionally, nutritionally, hormonally, physically, structurally, impact your pelvic floor. Female intimate health and the whole person looks at the issues in the head that impact the pelvic floor, the issues with the feet that impact the pelvic floor, the issues with the fingers and the hands that impact your pelvic floor, your sneezing, your coughing, all of those things that will directly or indirectly impact your pelvic floor. Every single step you take, step, hop, jump, whatever you do, the pelvic floor is involved in every walking, hopping, jumping movement. And so therefore, it is the foundation of the trunk and it's integral to everything you do. And it's affected by your emotions and your hormones and your nutrition and your hydration and your sleep, as well as your movement. And all of those things will impact your social interaction based on which one of those is compromised and how it shows up in your pelvic floor muscles. And that's why I wrote the second book, Pelvic Floor Secrets. And this is why I say that my secrets are for sharing, because those secrets can make a significant difference to how you live your life, where your life is going, and what choices you're going to make, and the impact those choices are going to have on your intimate and thus your overall health, your freedom of movement, your wardrobe choice, and how you will get into, stay into, come out of, or enter into new relationships. So that's quite a deep start, isn't it? I hope that makes sense. pelvicsecrets@icloud.com. That's my email address. I've got 7 days left in this new challenge, in this challenge that's running at the moment, and the next one starts in July. It's really great. I went to see my client with polio last week. We just used a paperclip, the curve of the paperclip on 3 scars. That right leg had a 15-degree bend in the right knee. After I used the paperclip on the scars at the knee and the hip, there was a 90-degree bend in the knee. So now my client is walking more freely, more fluidly, that she'd never done in 56 years. And now her leg can bend to 90 degree that it'd never done in how many years too. So there is... that's inspiring for her. That means her latter days are better than her former days. So for all of those movements changing, we can start to change the dynamics in the environment inside her pelvis. Then we can start to change her posture. And we're just going to change her quality of life. That's all that's going to happen. But as much as I might say that's all that's going to happen, that is everything. And that is worth the investment. This is why relationships are really, really...
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
One of the things that I've learned about relationships, she says, as a sassy, sexy 60-year-old, is that they're not set in stone, right? And today we can be in one place, tomorrow we can be somewhere totally different. And it could just be an incident that could happen. It could just be a mindset change. Many people make changes about what they want and where they find themselves based on maybe a sickness or a loss of a job, or maybe a loss of someone within their family. And it makes you look at life differently. And sometimes you can wake up and you can look at that person next to you and think, this isn't the person that I want to spend my life with. And a lot of the time when you get to that point, if we're honest, it's because we not discuss what life it is we want to spend together. And that's why I think it makes things quite hard. You've got to have your core values. You've got to know what your non-negotiables are. I know that I love my sports. I know that I love God. And I know I love helping people. I know that's something I love doing. If I'm in a race and I'm someone's struggling, I'm that person that's going to encourage them to keep going. I'll slow myself down to help them to keep going. I said it already. That's me. That's the life I like. But then I'm not really a big time clubber, but I love doing hospitality and having, maybe a garden party or barbecue and having friends over and cooking. I love cooking. I love entertaining people. They're the things I like, but I don't like to do it on a regular, non-stop all the time. I like that time where you can spend time together. I love cycling. I love running. I love tennis. I love getting out into the woods. I love nature. I love doing those things. So to meet someone who doesn't want to do any sports, who won't even consider doing any sports, who's refusing point blank to ever go to church, who doesn't understand people that work for themselves. Entrepreneurs and 9 to 5s are totally different. It was explained to me so succinctly by a colleague of mine who said, a 9 to 5 person goes to work from 9 to 5. They work for a set period of time over a month. They get paid for that month. They pay their bills and do whatever. They run out of money and they have to wait till the following month before they get some more. If they run out of money, not everyone does, right? But they get paid a set amount of money on a set day of the month. And they have to wait till that day comes around before they get more. Whereas an entrepreneur can earn up and down based on what the job is, what they're doing. Cardi Laguda, as a great aerobics teacher, said from years and years and years ago when I first knew him, there's nothing nicer than going to bed and waking up knowing you've made money while she was sleeping. It's like, and it is the dream, isn't it? I suppose, J.K. Rowling, she may have come from poverty, but look where she is now. She closes her eyes, she wakes up, she's made money. Beyonce, Jay-Z, all of those artists, Prince, all of those people. But they, not without putting the work in. First they didn't. They had to put the work in first. But once they put the work in, they reap the benefits. But the difference is those benefits can continue to be reaped for many, many years to come. Now, I don't have the same kind of royalties on my books that J.K. Rowling has. But at least I know my books have made a difference and impacted lives for good, in a way that's improved the quality of life for someone or saved the marriage in a relationship. So I know that I've done good. I know my books have brought clients to my door in Harley Street, and I've been able to help them to regain control and strength and power over their pelvic floor muscles. So I've done good. I've been able to transform the life of someone who didn't think it could be transformed, saved a marriage, met the husband who wants to know, who is this lady that's helped you to get to this point? And all of those things allow me to have this satisfaction in my life that makes me think life is really great. Now, I have said to you guys, I'm a wife in waiting. And so it's really important for me as a sassy, sexy 60-year-old, and for women in their 50s and coming into this age, to understand that there are some significant changes that are happening downstairs within our Gina. And if we are not aware of those changes and how to handle them, we are going to find ourselves in big trouble. So I've worked with women from years back when I was at the Harbour Club, and I left there in 2012, who were then in their 50s. So then I was in my 40s, right? Just coming to my 50s. And they'd got into a new relationship. They'd broken up from their marriage. They got into a new relationship, but they were in the menopause. But they weren't aware of the structural hormonal changes that were happening within their Gina. And so they weren't aware of the shrinking and the dryness and the laxity and the, and the thinning of the skin. So in order for them to be intimate in this new relationship, it became quite a painful experience, which then brings about things like vaginismus, which is a response where the muscles tighten up and become quite rigid because the fear attached to, the pain attached to penetration. And so before the new relationship has an opportunity to get going, it's halted because of these structural changes that happen inside of us that we have no idea about, that raise their ugly head when we try to bring them back to life. So I've just said to my clients, breath is life force energy. You have to breathe life there. But posture is a position from where all movement that directly or indirectly impacts the pelvic floor starts and ends. So we have to now be aware that if posture is a position from where all movement begins and ends, and every movement impacts our pelvic floor, then we have to understand that we want to be balanced. But we have to also understand if there are some hormonal changes happening, there are going to be nutritional changes that we have to make, that needs to happen to replace the hormones that plump up that very area that's now losing its plumpness, that's now losing its responsiveness, that's now losing its elasticity, that's now losing its tightness. We've got some things to do. But if we're not aware of those things, then we're going to find ourselves in trouble, and then we're going to find ourselves in pain, then we're going to find ourselves struggling in a relationship, and then we're going to find this new relationship may not last as long as we'd like it to because we haven't paid attention. But, when I wrote the first pelvic floor poem, I said, hidden from view, not a thought or regard, the pelvic floor, your internal bodyguard, put under pressure all day and all night to avoid embarrassment. The sphincters, the little loops that go around the urethra and the anal canal, must stay shut tight. The organs that sit on it, because our internal and reproductive organs sit on top of the pelvic floor, the organs that sit on it may dislodge from their home, and then into the vaginal canal they may roam. The pain and discomfort then motivates you to seek a solution to repair and resume. Sensorial in nature, that's the sensory communication pathway from the brain downstairs to Gina. Sensorial in nature, the last pathway to let wake, needs constant conditioning for confidence sake. The foundation of your trunk is your pelvic floor, to support and protect as if a trapdoor. Understand it well, value its role, confidently continent be it your goal. Functionally, hormonally, nutritionally, understand it well, value its role. And that's what we need to do. We need to get it into the schools, we need to get it into the system, say, look, come on, look, if you start, as I said before, if you understand, it can reward you with flatter abs, better shaped butt, better shaped thighs, improved posture. Dry lick is always great sex. Which one don't you want? At some point, somewhere along the line, someone's going to say, Jenny, I'm interested. And they're going to send me an email, pelvicsecrets@icloud.com. Or you're going to find me on Instagram and Twitter at Pelvic Secrets, or Jenny Russell on LinkedIn and Facebook. Because these things are important. They really are. And they don't need to be left to the last minute. They really don't. So I don't know if any of you've seen my Instagram post. I was in St. Lucia for a wedding. It was absolutely fantastic. I went out there. I've come back. I exercised whilst out there. I got some wonderful pictures taken out there with my beautiful yellow bikini, my lovely Cerisi pink one. They're my favourites. I bought them just before I left. Sassy, sexy, 60 in a bikini. Yeah? Anyway, because I can, right? And I took some amazing pictures that I took myself on timer. And they came out really, really well. But structurally, physically, my body is able to do those things. I do a lot of exercises functionally for my pelvic floor because it helps to stabilize my trunk and allows my limbs to move, which means my gait is improved, so my posture is improved, so my performance is improved. That allows me to be able to be away, to run, to laugh, to jump, to skip, to hop, and still be able to enjoy myself. Because I take out an hour out of each day or 45 minutes out of each day and just energize myself and keep myself well. I'm a wife in waiting. I want to walk down the aisle looking good. I want to stand tall, all 5 foot 3.5 inches of me. I want to stand tall. I want to be able to perform when I'm working, when I'm on stage talking, when I'm behind the screen, on the microphone talking here for the radio show, when I'm teaching my workshops that go live across the world. I want to be able to inspire women, to let them know that it's not just the celebrity here and the celebrity there that can look good. They can look just as good. You can look just as good as any celebrity. We had a spectacular time in St. Lucia, but I still looked after myself. I still was able to look after myself. I've come back and I've actually lost about half a stone. without trying. I enjoyed the drinks when the bar opened from 10:30 in the morning. I enjoyed the food, but as I said, in my book that I'm writing, the guide is how to bring back the body you took on holiday. It's about making conscious choices and understanding what you're doing and not feeling like you're depriving yourself of anything, because I did not deprive myself of anything. I had a spectacular holiday. And I come back and I was able to go to tennis. I'm able to look after my mum straight away. I was able to go out and ride 45 miles at the weekend. I was able to play tennis yesterday. I was able to go to run club today and be at the front. And still produce my show, still talk to my clients, still work with my clients, still do my work. Able to do those things, and I'm giving God thanks for that. Able to pray for people, able to speak and encourage people. I'm giving thanks that I can have this balance across the board. And so that everything downstairs is relaxed. It knows it's safe. I'm not storing in those root chakra and the sacral chakra where my pelvis and my pelvic floor is. I'm not storing hurts and disappointments. I'm not loading it with poor nutrition and poor hydration. I'm not doing those things. Maybe sometimes, but not always. I'm giving my body what it needs when it needs it. And I'm allowing my body to have things with full awareness that it may not need, but I might just desire. But I know it's not the staple diet for me, and it's not my staple movement pattern. And so therefore, I don't have to panic. Now I'm going to play another trail and then completely switch tack, because I interviewed Dr. Frankie Jackson-Spence and we talked about pollution. Actually, just knowing that toxic thoughts, poor thoughts, are polluting for the body as well. But we talked about pollution, and I just thought I'd end the show with that. And I hope that what I've shared here makes sense to someone. If you want to be a part of the next challenge, which starts on the 1st of July, it might seem like it's far away, and it's here, then send me an email, pelvicsecrets@icloud.com, or find me on Instagram. You'll find the link in my bio on Instagram and Twitter @pelvicsecrets, or even in my LinkedIn, Jenni Russell. So let me just play a trail. Let me play the interview about air pollutants, and let's see where we end at the end of this show.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Are you aware of what constitutes the pollution in your home? Are you aware of what is in your air? Or are you really a, inverted commas, airhead when it comes to indoor pollution? Today, I'm blessed to be speaking with Dr. Frankie Jackson-Spence, NHS doctor and TB doctor, and we're going to discuss just exactly what these things are. So, Dr. Frankie, welcome to Her Health and Happiness.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, the thing is, really, we think about air pollution, and I suppose we just think about things being external, as in outside of our house. You know, we don't really think about air pollution within our house, especially if we're tidy people. We just don't think there's air pollution. So what are the top 10 things?
Yeah, you've really hit the nail on the head there. Most of us, when we think of air pollution, think of pollutants on the outside, so fumes from transport like cars and trains, or burning fossil fuels. But this new research commissioned by Dyson showed that in over 2,000 adults, 39% of us feel like as long as our home feels clean, we assume there's no air pollution. And whilst opening a window or a door could actually be letting in some pollutants from the outside into your home, there's actually sources of pollution from inside the home as well that we need to be more aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of us like to fragrance our homes with candles or diffusers and those kinds of things, and they can all release pollutants. But also the other products we use, like the aerosol cans in deodorants or hairsprays, cleaning products we use can also release pollutant particles into the air. And some that I wasn't aware of until I started working with Dyson on this is that there's fumes that can be released from things that we decorate our homes with. So the paint we use on the wall or wallpapers, varnishes, even furniture like wood furniture or laminate
Polish.
flooring. Exactly. Laminate flooring is a big one. It can keep releasing pollutant particles over a long period of time. So I think whilst lots of us are aware of what's going on the outside of our home, this new research is really interesting with regards to pollutants inside the home.
So what I'm just going to pick you up on one thing there, Dr. Frankie. So what you're basically saying, right, is that the laminate has come out because not everyone can afford to buy real wood flooring. So they may buy a cheaper alternative to real wood flooring at the expense of pollutants that are actually being released from that flooring, not realizing it.
Yeah, there's lots of sources. That's one of them. But yes, obviously things like that, people have kind of less control over what they can afford. But there are some swaps we can make that are more affordable. Things like swapping your deodorant to a roll-on rather than aerosol can, or picking a more eco-friendly or natural candle or cleaning product. So, whilst I'm not expecting everyone to completely overhaul the way they live and what they use in their home, there are some simple swaps and just need to be slightly more aware.
Yeah, I mean, from a long, long time ago, I've told my family as well, and my clients that, we don't need antiperspirant. So I always use roll-on. I use Green People. So I use eco-friendly. I use Ecova. So I use all Ecova products. I mean, the issue, I think, for some of them is that obviously they haven't got some of the detergents and stuff in them. So for some people, they don't feel that they clean as well. But the difference is they don't have it's those extras that actually are the pollutants that are missing. So it's like 6 of one and half a dozen of another. Does that make sense?
A simple swap I made in my home is when I'm cleaning my kitchen surfaces, I would typically use a spray. So I would put the cleaning product onto the surfaces with a spray, and therefore some is being released into the air. Whereas now I would use a wipe or a cloth. And so whilst it's the same product, it's kind of releasing less into the atmosphere. So that kind of swap is also suitable.
Yeah, and I think also for people with animals, I suppose they're not really aware of the pollutants that animals can release, like the dog hairs and stuff as well.
Yeah, so pollution from dogs and pets is slightly different in the sense that they are more allergens rather than pollutants. So when we think about what's going on in our air, people who are allergy sufferers, particularly at this time of year when it's pollen season, are very aware of kind of opening the windows because it lets the pollen in. Pets can also bring pollen in from the outside. That doesn't cause the same kind of damage to your health over the long term. What it does do is if you are an allergy sufferer, it may trigger an exacerbation of those symptoms.
Yeah. I think that the thing is for I suppose if you look at pollen, it's quite hard. That's quite a hard one because like my youngest, he struggles with hay fever. And so he doesn't want to open his window. And a lot of people seem to have been suffering from hay fever very early this year, like already suffering. So that, I've got one of my clients, her eyes are just blown up like balloons, but they don't want to open the windows. They don't want to go outside, but that's not also a way to be. And I suppose, for what would be interesting is to find out what things in the house can also exacerbate or mimic hay fever symptoms. Are there things that can do that?
So all of the sources of air pollution I mentioned, they can cause similar symptoms to hay fever. So the allergy symptoms, particularly coughing, sneezing and shortness of breath. However, for many people, it won't actually be an allergy. It could actually be exacerbation of respiratory symptoms from the air pollution itself. In the report, I think it was about 25% of people report that someone in their house is prone to regular coughing and sneezing without a known source.
Yeah.
And it's, emerging that air pollution may be contributing to that. I think what you picked up, something you mentioned there is about how many of us kind of open a window to let in the fresh air. Particularly something I've become aware of living in a city is that I open my window and the air I'm letting in isn't so fresh. And so it's important to me to kind of reduce the air pollution within my home in different ways. One of them also being using an air purifier. But again, as I mentioned, reducing the sources of pollution that are created inside the home as well.
Mm. And I mean, for me, I have the original Dyson um, air conditioner, the air cooler, and
Purifier.
it heats as well. No, I've got the one that can actually give you hot air and be a air conditioner at the same time. So it'd be air conditioning cold for the summer and heat for the winter. And they're not the cheapest things, right? And it works really well. But I spoke to somebody from Dyson last year, and they told me they've got an amazing air purifier, which I think also does the air conditioning and the heat. But it's an investment. But if you are a person that's struggling with like asthma or any respiratory issue, then that's an investment worth making, is it not?
Absolutely. Like you said, it is an investment, and they work for many years. But something else is that, this isn't something that just affects people who are asthma sufferers or those with respiratory diseases. Actually, this can affect all of us, even if we're currently in perfect health. The impact of both external and internal air pollution on our health over the long term is really vast. It can cause inflammation and lung disease and trigger things like asthma, but it also can affect our heart, causing strokes, increased risk of heart disease, increasing our risk of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. And a stat that I found staggering was a report from Public Health England, which estimated an extra 43,000 deaths per year in the UK, which are attributed to air pollution. So it really is affecting us all. And so, like you said, these small changes we can make, or potentially larger investments, will be doing some good over the long term.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think, you can measure cost in many ways. And you might look at the cost of, the original investment into buying an air purifier, and you might think, I ain't paying that. But then what are you paying with your health? That's what I always say to my clients. What are you paying with your health? What is it actually costing your health? Because it's not just, we look at nutrition and we think it's it's just poor lifestyle. Lifestyle is not just food and drink. It is all those things you mentioned. It is everything else. It's all the external factors, the environmental factors. They play a major part. And I think many people overlook that. And that's why when they're looking to try and work out what is the sort of root cause of their symptoms, if they don't take into consideration things like air pollutants, then they may be making adjustments, but not really getting the results they want because they're not making all the adjustments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easy to correct things that we can visibly see. And indoor air pollution is one of the ones that, often we definitely can't see, but we often can't even smell or taste. So it's easy to ignore that it's there. And like I mentioned, the majority of people answering the responses to this survey proves that this is a large area of a knowledge gap for most people. And so having conversations like this, where we bring it to people's attention and doing research studies like this, is just so important.
Amen. So where can people go to get more information?
So there's some brilliant information and more about this research in particular on the Dyson newsroom, which is on the Dyson UK website. So I'd recommend everyone goes and checks that out.
Fantastic. Dr. Frankie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for waiting.
Do you know when you do those interviews,
all right, take care. Thank you very much.
You want to talk to someone, and then you turn your computer on, it decides that's when it wants to do updates. So you've got an interview, serves me right. The lesson I learned from that is turn it on 10 minutes before. But I didn't. I turned it on 5 minutes before. And it decided it wanted to update. So you wait for the updates to get done. Then it kicked me out. Then I had to log in again. Not a problem. And then when I got into Zoom, Zoom decided that it wanted to update as well. So the lesson is switch on 10 minutes before and just sit in the waiting room. And that way you won't have a problem. Now, I hope that interview was, it's a bit random with what I'm talking about. Like, we're talking about relationships and now you're just throwing air pollution. But again, it's kind of just understanding things. It's just about actually understanding that there are certain things that we can put within our houses. That humidifier is an investment, but if you're a person that struggles with any respiratory issues, or if you do have lots of laminate flooring or lots of carpet, or you live in a built-up area, then it's definitely worth the investment. But we are coming towards the end of the show, and I hope this week has made sense to you. I hope it's helped you to look at things from a different perspective and say to yourself, right, what is it that I am doing that I could do differently? How can I be in a better position? How can I make sure that I'm committed rather than just connected? And
do I have the strength to be honest about when I meet someone? Am I honest about what it is I want from what we're about to explore? At this age here now, I'm playing already. I'm having fun playing on the tennis court. I'm having fun playing when I'm riding or cycling. But in a relationship, I'm looking for a husband. I'm very, very honest. I'm looking for a husband. And yes, God has blessed me with great physique. He's given me this wonderful physique that I've managed to look after for these sassy, sexy 60 years of my life. But it's going to attract, as it always has, attracts a certain... It's going to attract people there physically, and they're thinking, well, she does pelvic floor. I mean, I wonder what she's like, in the bedroom. It's great. But like I said, get a ticket, join the queue. But that queue I'm not servicing. So it's a queue that's a redundant queue. But I'm not looking just to have fun. I'm looking to journey with someone into that limelight who wants to be a part of this journey, of the next stage of what I'm planning to do for myself, the legacy I want to leave behind, what I want to also be able to do to still encourage my boys, my sons, so that they can have a great life, what I can be able to do and put in place for my nieces, what I can do and put in place for those that don't have the opportunity that I have. Who can I help? Who can I bless? Who can I inspire? What can I do to make their life better? How can I help women to not be ashamed of their intimate parts of their bodies? How can I help women avoid vulva cancers or cervical cancers or uterine cancers or bowel cancers because we don't go for smears and have the checks and do the things that we need to do to make sure we're okay? How can I help women who have gone through the menopause and are out of relationships prepare themselves for another relationship and not be afraid of being intimate? That's the gift that I've been blessed to share, and that's the gift that I love sharing. Because when a husband kisses his wife on the head and says to you, "Thank you for giving me my wife back," you know you're doing a good job. Another husband wants to meet you because he wants to know, who are you and how did you manage to do this for my wife, for us, for our relationship? You know you're doing a good job. When a woman that has been raped or has been abused or had any of those things can actually stand up, speak out, have the confidence in her own ability, lose the pain that she's been struggling with for years, and actually have a quality of life she didn't think was possible, you know you're doing things good. That's all that matters. And if all else fails, grab a tennis racket, get on a tennis court, and enjoy yourself. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. Send me an email. Talk to me. Let me know what you think, Jenny, you chat shit. Jenny, you chat good. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any particular area of female intimate health you would love me to cover, and I'll do my best to cover it for you. But until then, in health and happiness, stay blessed, stay well. Take care.